Finally.
Let's talk about Crow Country. Both you and Tim have played it. Have you guys beat it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Last night.
Tell me about it. Who wants to start?
Go, Raj.
Yeah, Crow Country is a throwback horror game, survival horror game. Resident Evil-like is kind of the idea. PS1 graphics is kind of the art style that they're going for. Very puzzle heavy. That's like kind of my main takeaway from my experience, right? Like there's a lot of horror and there's a lot of scary and shooting things, but like you can just kind of ignore all that and just kind of focus on the puzzles mostly, at least in my experience.
Have you played Resident Evil on the PlayStation?
No, I've never played the original one.
That's
so like
exactly what those games are.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so you can give me the kind of like history lesson there for me. So this is like my first time playing like an OG Resident Evil type thing. I've only played 7, 8. Those are the only Resident Evil games I played, and the 2 remake. But yeah, no, I would describe this game as just a really good time. I would give this a 7.5. I had a good time. I don't think there's any negatives necessarily that I have, like super like, oh my God, they did this thing wrong or anything. It was always a good experience, and it never got to the great experience, but I was very happy with the time that I spent with it, right? This is a game that's made by 2 people. It's a super impressive video game.
Same team that made Snipper Clips. The
Switch.
Yeah, the Switch launch title. Yeah, that was
Holy
amazing.
shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it scratched that itch for me of I wanted to play a Resident Evil-like game this year. I don't think we're going to get a Resident Evil 9 this year, so I was like, okay, I'm going to check this out. It was at, I believe, Day of the Devs.
It was, and
it
impressed. Yeah, a lot of people looked at that.
Yeah, it was like a massive line, so I was like, I got to check that out. And when I saw the reviews came out a few weeks ago, I was like blown away. I was like, oh, can't believe this game is out. Let me try it out. And yeah, I finished it within 2 days. It was I think 4-hour experience, 3-hour experience for me. Super short.
4 to 5 hour experience for this, depending on how much you want to do, which I think is the perfect time frame
in and
for
out.
this game. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing that I loved about this is that I was expecting this to kind of be a gimmick video game, right? Where it's like, oh, it looks like a PS1 game. Like we get a lot of those. It's like, oh, it looks cool, but like, what's the substance here? A lot of substance. Like I felt the story was intriguing, and once we got to the ending, I was like, wow, shit. I was like calling Leanza. I was like, Leanza, this thing happened, and this thing happened. Like a really great conclusion. I think in the middle, it does kind of like. It's like, okay, we're still doing this. Oh shit, I got to figure out this puzzle. And it's not a great game, at least for me, of like putting it down and picking it back up. Really hard because the way that the puzzles are, and you can give me the history lesson on this, the way the puzzles are kind of created in this game is that it's not like linear, right? Like, so you would find a clue for a puzzle that's like way deeper in the game, and you kind of have to keep tabs of like, oh, this wall told me to do this thing, and oh, that connects to this thing. So like, once you put the controller down, you come back literally a day later, you kind of look at it and you're like, I don't even know what I was doing, where was I, where do I have to go? So I did at the ending of the game have to go to a guide to like try to figure out what I was doing. But other than that, I just had a good time, a very good time. So 7 out of 5, 7.5 out of 10.
Tim Geddes.
Could not agree with every single thing Roger said more. I would also give Crow Country a 7.5 out of 10 here. Kind of funny. I thought that this was awesome. Like the way that they kind of nailed what they were going for, which is obviously a nostalgia play, but also what if we made a Resident Evil PS1 style game that plays the way you remember it as opposed to what it actually played like, while still having a lot of the elements that make those games memorable and special, and taking the more modern vibe of like, okay, but what didn't we like about those games? Like, obviously, there's such a style to them that we're nostalgic for this pre-rendered background look, but it was always a bummer you couldn't control the camera. Well, guess what? You can here, and it makes the whole thing feel like you're in a very realized diorama. The design of the game, I think, is beautiful. The one thing that bothers me is I don't like the look of the main character, Mara, here.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something about the outfit itself and, like, the look that I just not vibing with.
Sure.
I do get it, though, where they didn't want to go the more realistic type look that they went for in Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, but instead it's a bit more of the nostalgia of, like, a Final Fantasy VII, of going for, like, what Cloud looked like in playing the original Final Fantasy VII, which also had that kind of pre-rendered background look. So mixing those things together, I get the call. I think it works for a lot of the different characters. And that obviously doesn't get in the way of my enjoyment of this game. There's some great things too of the survival horror stuff. There's 2 modes in this game. You can either play through the normal way, or you can do what I think is called exploration mode, which there's no enemies and no combat. It's just figuring out the puzzles, which is funny because these games, like, really, when you break down Resident Evil, they're way more just puzzle based. It's more like a point and click adventure game, just in a different look than you'd ever really expect. And taking Resident Evil 2 remake and 3 remake, even the recent ones, that's true too. Like all the puzzles are just very like, hey, here's a number that you're gonna put on a lock somewhere to open up a thing. Like, but then there's a lot of really engaging third person combat in between that I kind of feel like makes all that stuff, even if you don't like that genre, kind of feel worth doing to get to more fun combat stuff. This episode's brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. I'm currently planning a wedding, so I know all about that. But when we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. You can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace, and it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. This game leans full into you are just going around reading a note that will give you a hint to open up something else. Yeah. And there's fun there. I do think that it's a little bit dated overall, and I don't know that this is for everybody. But I do think that for people that have a nostalgia for those games at all, this game plays with that nostalgia perfectly. And the little details of you find like video game magazines, like 90s style magazines around that have tips for you to read on where to go. That stuff's great. And some of the kind of bigger issues that I would have with those original games would be like, all right, I get that it's survival horror, but if I'm out of bullets and I can't get any more bullets, this kind of sucks now. Yeah. You know, like sometimes you get caught into a save that you're like, this isn't fun anymore. You could always go back to the very beginning and there's a car that just has infinitely respawnable handgun ammo.
And they're very generous about giving you different anything. There's these vending machines and trash cans that, depending on if you're low on med kits or you're low on ammo, you go up to it and you open it up and it will give you the thing that you're lowest in. So it is very good about giving it to you. But again, you don't really necessarily need that even. Like you can just kind of run around every single enemy if you really want to.
Totally. And that's classic Resident Evil style things. But I like that they give you the option, but you don't need to use it, which is nice. And then also, if you get just super stuck, there's this really cool system. It's like a fortune teller that it's limited. I think that you can only do it 10 times. But if you're stuck, you can go up to it and they'll give you a hint that's context based on where you are in the game to tell you what you need to do. And it's not a hard riddle, but it's a bit more of a riddle.
Yeah, there was one where I was very pissed off. And I'm like, I wasted one of these things. I'm like, that did not help me at all. I knew to do that.
But yeah, there's a lot going there, and I'm right there with Raj where like from the beginning of the game, I mean, let's just start off with this. The setting is an abandoned amusement park. Yeah. I don't think that there's a cooler setting for a game, for a horror game, than an abandoned amusement park, and they lean so into that in like all the right ways. I feel the beginning and end of the game are fantastic. It does drag just a little bit towards like 2/3 through where I'm like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. Yeah. But it's not bad. It's just kind of like, oh, it doesn't kind of reach the highs. But again, the whole experience, 4 to 5 hours, like I totally think that it's worth playing if you are at all interested in the original Resident Evil games on PlayStation. Or if you just are like, yo, this game looks really cool, you should give it a shot. It's available pretty much everywhere as well.
Yeah, no, it did feel a little weird playing the game on Xbox, seeing like the Xbox buttons or whatever. I'm like, this is a perfect PlayStation game to like fully go back and immerse
I played on
myself.
Steam Deck.
Oh, smart. Yeah. But the one thing about like the 2/3 into the game, the thing that did frustrate me is that they start doing like environmental things where like, you know, things are on the floor and then you walk into it and it explodes or whatever. I'm just running into these things because it's like the you know, the way that the camera is and everything, and it gets a little bullshitty towards that part. I feel like where it's like, okay, we're really getting towards the end of our rope here with what this game is, but it comes together at the ending for sure.
Yeah.
So
and so one thing where they kind of like help you out in terms of like, oh, if you need more ammo, you can do this, or there's the fortune teller thing. One system that I really wish was improved in this that I'm a little baffled by is the lack of a hey, I read this note. I can just open up my menu and see what the note said.
Yeah.
At any save room, it functions very much like a Resident Evil, where there are save rooms. Anywhere there's a fireplace, you can save your game. When you go in there, there's a lot of ammo you can get. There's like a whole bunch of there's like a binder you essentially can open that has any note or letter that you've read throughout the entire game there. So you can always go back, and there's enough save rooms that like you can always get to one to refer back if you're like, oh, I found this lock or a phone that I need to input a number into or whatever. I know that I have a letter that I saw a number that I haven't used yet. It's probably going to be that. Having to go to the save room, it's not fun. It just kind of feels like it's getting its own way. Like they clearly knew that this was going to be an issue by having them in the save room. I kind of just wish you had that in the menu. It would have just sped things up in a way that I think would have enhanced.
Or being able to like mark the ones that you've used, right? Like, because there's so many that are like, it gets confusing of like, did I use this one? What number is this for? Like, just being able to be like, yes, I used that number. I'm good. I think this is a really good like start to a franchise. Like, if they wanted to continue to do this, like, they're going to kill. And like the fact that this is their first foray into something like this, and it feels so polished. It feels like a game that they've been working on for a long time. Again, 2 people, which is insane. I'm very excited for what they do next.
Yeah, it's